Thomas's Brave Adventure. Ollie couldn't get enough of trains. He loved the clickety-clack of the wheels, the whistle of steam, and most of all, the promise of adventure. So when Grandpa invited Ollie to visit, he knew how he'd be getting there, the Blue Railway, straight across the countryside. It ought to have been a big adventure, but when Ollie learned that his family would be tagging along, it suddenly didn't feel like one. It felt more like his sister, Lily, tugging at his hat again. I thought I'd visit Grandpa on my own, Ollie grumbled. I am big after all. Oh, yes, his mother said with a chuckle. You're a big brother now. Ollie felt his parents looking at each other in a way that told him they didn't think he was big at all. As they boarded the train, his parents peered around the compartment to find seats. Look, Ollie, his dad said, pointing an empty row. Why don't you sit across the way and enjoy the ride? We'll be right here if you need us. Ollie's eyes lit up. Across the way wasn't exactly on my own, but it was close enough for a big, brave adventure. All aboard! As the train speed up, new sights appeared by towns turned into flower fields. Butterflies danced around the window. Horses galloped in the distance. Ollie turned to tell Lily about it, but she wasn't there. Ticket for one. No one to join you on this big adventure, the conductor asked, smiling warmly. Nope, Ollie beamed. I'm doing it on my own. With a twinkle in her eye, the conductor reached into her coat pocket and pulled out a little blue toy engine. You remind me of my old friend Thomas the Tank Engine. You would like to hear a story about him? She asked. I'd love a story. Swoosh! On the island of Sodor, Thomas the Tank Engine chugged into the train yard. He had six small wheels, a short stumpy funnel, a short stumpy boiler, and a short stumpy dome. He was a cheeky little engine, too. I am not cheeky. I am useful. His best friend Percy pulled the mail train and was coming in for his daily break. I'm running on steam, sighed Percy, and not much of it. Even engines need to rest. Just then, Sir Topham Hatt hurried over. He was in a right state. We've received a last-minute delivery for a special event, but Percy is on his break. I suppose we'll just have to wait. Can anyone help? Thomas stopped in his tracks. This was the perfect job for him. A chance to prove how useful he could be. All on his own. It is, I'll do it. I am big and strong and useful, Thomas said, thinking aloud. Of course you are, cheered Sir Topham Hatt. It's just past the Whistling Woods. But you haven't traveled there before. Would you like some company? Thomas peered around the train station. James and Henry were in the sheds. Rosie was passing by. There were other engines who could help, but Thomas wanted to prove he could do this on his own. No, sir, he said. I can do it. Are you sure? Going on my own will be fun. Then you'd better crack on. Then you'd better crack on. As Thomas made his way into the Whistling Woods, his puffs came fast and shaky. Chuff, chuff, chuff. He hadn't visited this part of Sodor before. Soon he heard something quite strange. A chitter, chitter. Then a squeak, squeak, squeak. It didn't sound like any engine Thomas knew of. Thomas's whistle nervously rang through the woods. Did you hear that? He said to no one, because no one was there. Peep, peep. Okay, I get it. Thomas was usually a brave engine, but even brave engines sometimes wish to have a best friend. Have a friend beside them. I am fine on my own. But as Thomas continued, the wood seems to be laughing. Even though he wanted to be so brave, all alone, Thomas let out a worry. Piss. 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 Then rounded the bend. push, 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 then rounded a bend. Then rounded the bend, and came upon a family of otters playing in the water. They chittered as they swam. Good thing I'm extremely brave and extremely useful, Thomas said, or someone might have thought I was afraid. Watching them, Thomas wished he'd waited for Percy so they could have seen it all together. They would have such fun. They would have such fun. They would have some have had they would had such fun. They would had such fun. Next page. What a lot there was to see. He discovered there were marvels to find all across the Whistling Woods. He sniffed sweet flowers, danced with a storm of butterflies, and even chugga alongside galloping horses. He went rolling, rattling, and gliding. Thomas wasn't scared of the Whistling Woods anymore, but he was ready to be with his friends. I really am. All right. As he rounded one last bend, Thomas finally came upon the Whistling Woods station. Only one thing could make this day better. Thomas had finally understood sometimes he wanted to be alone, but most things were better when shared with those he loved. All right. Thomas! Percy and Rosie rushed down the tracks behind Thomas. Are you all right? Percy asked. We heard you. Peep, peep, your horn, and raced to find you. We thought you might want some company after all, added Rosie. Now that he had his friends, Thomas felt better, much better. In fact, as all was well at last. Swoosh! Ollie held the toy train close as the conductor finished her story. Suddenly, he spots all alone. Didn't seem so special. I think I'd like to go and sit with my family. Splendid. All right. This is the last page. It's only I don't want Thomas to be alone. Ollie glanced shyly toward the toy engine on his empty seat. The conductor nodded back, quite serious. Yes, I agree. I think he's rather taken to you. Why don't you keep him? Thank you, Miss Conductor. Ollie hollered. Ollie hollered. I promise. I'll keep him safe. I don't doubt it. I don't doubt it for a second, she replied, and in good company, too. And this is the end.